They delivered the line with the exact same casualness people use to check the morning forecast. "I'm divorcing you, Chloe." My spoon hit the porcelain plate with a sharp, ear-splitting clink that shattered the quiet room. The bitter, heavy aroma of Ethiopian pour-over coffee hung frozen in the air. The harsh sunlight streaming through the Gold Coast apartment window suddenly felt blinding. I stared at him. He didn't blink. "You heard me," Daniel said, his voice flat and dry. "I want a divorce. I can't live like this anymore." His palm slammed against the marble island, making his mug rattle violently. "Look at you. You do nothing. You sit in your oversized sweater, staring at that laptop all day, living off my hard work. You contribute nothing to this home. You are a leech, Chloe." I took a slow, deep breath, tasting the cloying sweetness of his expensive cologne mixed with the dark roast. My voice remained unnaturally calm. "That is not true, Daniel." "Then what do you actually do?" he snapped, cutting me off with a bitter laugh. "You toss a $100 bill from your little freelance gig on the counter for organic groceries once a month. That is an allowance, not a contribution. I pay the mortgage on this high-rise. I pay the lease on the Audi. I pay for our trips to Aspen. I carry this entire life on my back." I looked into his eyes, searching for the man I had married 4 years ago. He was gone. Only cold contempt remained. I wanted to tell him the truth. I wanted to open my mouth and reveal everything. But a quiet, sharp instinct whispered in the back of my mind. "Stay silent. Let him speak." "I have already spoken to my attorney," Daniel continued, running a hand through his gelled hair. His fingers twitched with nervous energy, but his posture was rigid. "The process will be quick. We do not have children. That works in our favor. I keep what is mine. You keep what is yours." "Are you that sure?" I asked. The icy composure in my tone caught him off guard. "Yes," he spat, leaning closer. The smell of his peppermint toothpaste hit my face. "I am miserable. I need a woman with real ambition. Someone on my level, not a burden who holds me back." The words stung, but I let them settle like dust. I nodded slowly. "I understand." He froze. He expected tears. He expected a screaming match or begging. He did not expect this absolute stillness. "Right," he muttered, adjusting his cufflink. "Our prenup is ironclad. My father made sure of that before the wedding to protect my family's assets. The apartment is in my name. The cars are mine. You signed it without a word, remember?" I remembered every single day. I said softly, taking a sip of my lukewarm coffee. "Good. Then it is simple. We do not need a mess. I will pack a bag and stay at a hotel for 2 weeks until the initial papers are processed." Daniel stood up, turning toward the window, where the Chicago skyline was waking up under a pale gray sky. He stopped at the doorway, not bothering to look back. "It is nothing personal, Chloe. I just do not love you anymore. And I cannot love someone who does not fight for anything. I fight every single day," I thought, just in silence. "Is there someone else?" I asked before he could step into the hallway. The air in the room grew heavy. His back tensed. An imperceptible twitch rippled through his shoulders. "No," he said too quickly. "There is no other woman. It is just about us." He paused, his breath rattling in his chest. "Though, Ashley knows about this. She agrees that I deserve better." My best friend's name hung in the cold air between us. "Ashley knows before anyone else." I asked. Daniel did not answer. His dress shoes clicked sharply against the hardwood floor as he walked down the corridor. The guest room door shut with a heavy, final thud. He did not go to a hotel. He hid in our own home. I sat alone at the kitchen island, staring at my hands. Then I reached into the lower drawer, pulled out a second smartphone, a sleek, discreet model with no label, and swiped the screen open. 3 encrypted apps appeared: a private banking portal, an offshore investment platform, and a secure mail client. I logged into the banking app. The balance refreshed on the glass screen. An 8-figure sum sitting safely inside an irrevocable trust in Delaware. A trust created years before I ever met Daniel Miller. I let out a soft, hollow breath. I closed the app, put the phone back into the drawer, and picked up my regular cell. At that exact second, the screen lit up with Ashley's caller ID. I swiped to answer. "Hello, Ashley." "Chloe, sweetie." Her voice dripped with fake, sugary concern. "Oh, my God. Daniel just called me crying. He told me about the divorce. Are you okay? Do you want me to come over right now?" "I am fine, Ashley," I said, keeping my pulse steady. "Just processing things." "It is just terrible," she gasped into the receiver. "What are you going to do? Do you have any money saved up? You know you can always count on me, right? We are best friends." "Thank you," I replied, watching the gray light shift across the kitchen counter. "I will manage." "Well, if you say so, but let us get brunch tomorrow." Ashley pressed, her tone shifting slightly, sharp with hidden curiosity. "My treat. You need to tell me everything." "I will call you tomorrow," I said, and hung up. I did not call her back. Instead, I opened her contact card, tapped the screen 3 times, and selected block contact. I stood up, washed my coffee mug, and placed it upside down on the drying rack. Everything in its place. Then, I walked up to the master bedroom closet. I pulled down a sleek leather suitcase, set it on the bed, and began folding Daniel's tailored suits and silk ties with meticulous care. An hour later, I knocked on the guest room door. "I packed a bag for you," I said through the wood. "It is by the front door." "Thanks." His muffled voice came from inside. I put on my dark trench coat, wrapped a cashmere scarf around my neck, and stepped out into the biting Chicago wind. I walked until I reached Lincoln Park. Sitting on a cold wooden bench near the frozen pond, I opened my secure phone and composed a single email to my attorney, Sam Vance. "Sam, the prenup is active. He wants a fast, uncontested divorce. Grant him every single thing he thinks he owns. Let him take the apartment and the cars. Do not fight for a single cent of his money. Just ensure my Delaware trust remains completely untouched." Sam's reply came back 2 minutes later. "Understood, Chloe. The trap is set. Let us give him exactly what he asked for." I closed the phone and looked up at the overcast sky. The cold wind stung my cheeks, but inside, I felt a quiet, unwavering warmth. To understand how I ended up sitting on this park bench, watching my 4-year marriage crumble without shedding a single tear, we have to turn back the clock to the very beginning. Daniel signed the final separation papers without reading the fine print. His gold Mont Blanc pen scraped across the crisp white paper with a swift, arrogant flourish. The sharp smell of fresh blue ink filled the sterile air of the notary's office. He did not ask for a financial audit. He did not request a bank statement review. In his mind, auditing a freelance wife with no steady paycheck was a waste of expensive billable hours. He wanted out. He wanted Ashley. Within 48 hours, Daniel moved his leather trunks and designer suits into a short-term rental in River North. The door of our Gold Coast apartment closed behind him with a dull, echoing click. He left no note. He left no trace. I did not stay in that empty high-rise. The vast rooms smelled of lingering peppermint cologne and stale pride. 2 days later, I hired a local moving crew. I packed 3 wardrobe boxes, my ergonomic desk chair, my dual-monitor workstation, and my favorite potted monster plant. My new home was a quiet 2-bedroom apartment in Logan Square. Sunlight poured through the tall bay windows, illuminating the warm oak floorboards and exposed brick walls. The air smelled of fresh pine paint and roasted coffee beans from the bakery down the street. It was small. It was modest. It was entirely mine. Every morning at 5 o'clock, the soft chime of my alarm broke the silence. I rolled out my dark gray mat and practiced 50 minutes of vinyasa yoga. My muscles burned. My breath came in steady, deep rhythms. I felt the hardwood floor firm beneath my palms. For 4 years, I had shrunk my physical presence to fit inside a man's fragile ego. Now, with every deep exhale, my lungs expanded. My posture straightened. I nourished my body with intention. Crisp green apples, poached eggs, steamed kale, and warm jasmine tea replaced the sugary takeout pastries Daniel used to bring home. I traded my faded house hoodies for tailored silk blouses and cream cashmere sweaters. Quiet luxury. No logos. No loud brands. Just pure, unyielding quality. Then I went to work. I sat at my oak desk for 14 hours a day. The soft, rhythmic click of my mechanical keyboard echoed through the sunlit room. Lines of green data scrolled across my dark monitors. I ran complex yield algorithms for hedge funds in London and risk models for private equity firms in Zurich. While Daniel spent his afternoons showing multi-million-dollar suburban houses to picky clients, I restructured debt portfolios worth tens of millions across 3 continents. 3 weeks after our divorce was finalized in court, the trap snapped shut. It began with a frantic call from Sam Vance on my encrypted line. "Chloe, you need to see this," Sam said. His voice was low and calm, but I heard the sharp edge of professional anticipation. "Ashley's father is a cook. The IRS and the Department of Justice just served search warrants on his logistics firm in O'Hare. Fraudulent tax shelters and unpaid payroll liabilities." I set my teacup down. The porcelain clinked softly against the saucer. "How bad is it?" "Total insolvency," Sam replied. "And here is the punchline. Ashley convinced Daniel to save her family. Daniel just signed a personal guarantee for a $2.5 million private bridge loan. He put up his unencumbered real estate commission pipeline and his future stock options as collateral." A cold, clear realization washed over me. Daniel had walked straight into Ashley's net. He believed he was playing the chivalrous knight, the wealthy alpha male rescuing his princess. In reality, Ashley was drowning, and she needed a foolish man with a good credit score to pull her above water. "Who holds the paper on that bridge loan?" I asked softly. "A distressed asset lender out of Delaware," Sam said. "They are looking to offload the risk immediately. The loan is already defaulting because the logistics firm's bank accounts were frozen by federal agents this morning." My fingers flew across the keyboard. "How much to buy out the entire debt note right now?" 80 cents on the dollar, Sam answered. 2 million cash. "Do it," I instructed without a second of hesitation. "Use Vance Capital, LLC. Wire the funds from the Delaware Trust. Acquire the note, the collateral rights, and the personal guarantee attached to Daniel Miller." "Understood," Sam said. "Consider it done." 2 hours later, my secure email client chimed with a new notification. I opened the encrypted attachment. The transfer was complete. I now owned Daniel's $2.5 million debt. I owned his commission pipeline. I held the keys to his financial life in the palm of my hand. I leaned back in my leather chair and looked out the window. The afternoon sun was dipping below the Chicago skyline, painting the clouds in shades of amber and rose. Just then, my regular email inbox popped up with an automated property management alert from Vance Capital's real estate division. I clicked the link. It was a signed lease agreement for a luxury penthouse in River North, a glass tower overlooking the Chicago River, owned anonymously by my master, LLC. The tenants' signatures sat side by side at the bottom of the digital contract. Daniel Miller and Ashley Reyes. They had agreed to an exorbitant monthly rent of $8,000 to maintain their lavish lifestyle. A faint, serene smile touched my lips. I did not feel rage. I did not feel bitterness. I felt the profound, weightless clarity of a chess player who had just placed every piece exactly where it belonged. I closed my laptop with a soft, decisive snap. The quiet apartment enveloped me. I stood up, walked to the balcony, and breathed in the cool evening breeze. My heart was steady. My mind was clear. My new life had begun. The grand ballroom of the Drake Hotel glittered under crystal chandeliers. The air was thick with the scent of expensive lilies, roasted prime rib, and vintage champagne. Soft violin music floated over the hum of $100 laughter. It was the annual Chicago Real Estate Gala, the premier event where brokers, developers, and investors gathered to flex their wealth. Daniel stood near the ice sculpture in a custom tuxedo that pinched his shoulders. Beside him, Ashley dazzled in a crimson backless gown. Her 6-carat diamond ring caught the harsh ballroom lights, throwing sharp glints into the crowd. She held a glass of Dom Perignon, laughing a little too loudly at a developer's joke. Daniel smiled, but his jaw was tight. He checked his phone every 5 minutes. The bank alerts were piling up. Then, the crowd near the entrance parted. I stepped into the ballroom. I wore a simple, tailored black silk gown with a high neckline. No diamonds. No heavy glitter. Just a thin gold chain around my collarbone. My hair was swept back into a sleek bun. Beside me walked Sam Vance, dressed impeccably in a dark charcoal suit. I took a glass of sparkling water from a passing waiter's tray. The cool glass felt solid in my palm. The faint scent of citrus refreshed the heavy air. Ashley spotted us first. Her red lips curled into a smirk. She grabbed Daniel's arm, tugging him across the polished parquet floor toward us. Her high heels clicked sharp and aggressive against the wood. "Chloe," Ashley called out, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "Oh, my goodness. I didn't know they let freelancers into the Drake Gala. Are you working at the press table?" Daniel adjusted his satin bow tie, puffing out his chest. His eyes scanned my simple dress, searching for signs of defeat. "Chloe," he said, his voice laced with patronizing pity, "it is good to see you out of the house. Are you managing okay in Logan Square? It must be a shock, adjusting to a smaller budget." Ashley giggled, resting her heavy diamond-ringed hand on Daniel's chest. "If things get too tight, Chloe, let me know. My father's logistics firm is looking for a data entry clerk. It pays $20 an hour. Perfect for your skills set." I did not flinch. I did not raise my voice. I took a slow sip of my water, looking past Ashley's heavy perfume into Daniel's tense eyes. "Thank you, Ashley," I said calmly. "But I believe your father's firm has more pressing matters to attend to." Ashley's smirk froze. "What is that supposed to mean?" Sam Vance stepped forward, pulling a sleek leather portfolio from his coat. The crisp snap of the brass clasp echoed in the small circle that had formed around us. Several prominent city developers paused, watching the interaction. "Good evening, Daniel." "Ashley," Sam said in a clear, resonant voice that carried across the quieted corner. "I am serving you formal legal notice on behalf of Vance Capital, LLC." Daniel frowned, his arrogance flickering. "Vance Capital? I don't know any Vance Capital. We rent our penthouse from a private holding company." "Correct," Sam replied smoothly, opening the portfolio. He pulled out 3 thick legal documents printed on crisp bond paper. "First, Ashley. This afternoon, the Department of Justice and the IRS executed federal seizure warrants on all domestic assets belonging to Reyes Logistics. Your family's accounts are frozen. The firm is officially insolvent." Ashley's face turned gray. The red lipstick suddenly looked blood dark against her pale skin. Her hand dropped from Daniel's chest. That's impossible. My father said. Second, Daniel, Sam interrupted, his tone as sharp as a scalpel. Your $2.5 million personal guarantee on the bridge loan was purchased in full by Vance Capital yesterday. Due to the federal seizure of Reyes Logistics, the loan is in immediate default. Demand for full payment has been issued to your bank. Daniel gasped, clutching the edge of a high-top table. His knuckles turned white. What? No. I have time. My commission pipeline. Your commission pipeline was pledged as primary collateral, Sam noted calmly. It has been frozen by court order. Who owns Vance Capital? Daniel yelled, his voice cracking, drawing the eyes of 50 wealthy onlookers. Who the hell is behind this? Sam stepped aside, gesturing toward me with a slight, respectful nod. Chloe Bennett is the sole beneficial owner of Vance Capital LLC, its real estate holdings, and the Delaware Trust that holds your defaulted debt note. The ballroom went dead silent. The violin music in the background sounded distant, almost absurd. Daniel stared at me, his eyes wide and bloodshot. His breath rattled in his throat as if the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. Chloe? No. You don't have money. You sit at home. You do freelance work. I manage offshore yield portfolios. Daniel, I said softly, my voice cutting through his panic like a cool breeze. I cleared 8 figures last year. While you were bragging about your real estate commissions, I was funding private equity firms. Ashley stepped back, looking at Daniel as if he had suddenly transformed into a stranger. You told me she was broke. You said she was a leech living off your salary. She was. Daniel screamed, turning on Ashley, his face flushed with humiliation. She never said a word. She lied to me. I never lied, I said, setting my empty glass on a passing tray with a soft, final clink. You just never bothered to ask. You were too busy admiring your own reflection. Sam pulled out the final document. And lastly, as the owner of the River North penthouse, Vance Capital is issuing an immediate eviction notice due to non-payment of the security deposit. You have 48 hours to vacate the premises. Ashley gasped, clutching her throat. Our penthouse. We have nowhere to go. My father's house is seized. That is no longer my concern, I said. Daniel fell back against the table, his posture completely shattered. The arrogant alpha male was gone. In his place stood a terrified man buried under millions of dollars of debt, exposed before the entire Chicago elite. I looked at both of them, the husband who had treated me like trash, and the best friend who had stabbed me in the back for money that wasn't even there. I felt no anger. I felt no satisfaction. I felt only a vast, clean emptiness. I turned on my heel. My silk gown rustled softly against the polished floor. My heels tapped a steady, rhythmic beat as I walked toward the grand glass doors of the Drake Hotel. I stepped out into the crisp, cold Chicago night. The wind blew past my face, fresh and pure. The war was over. I was completely, undeniably free. The aftermath was swift and uncompromising. Within 48 hours of the gala, the Chicago business press caught wind of the collapse. Daniel's real estate firm terminated his contract immediately, citing severe reputational damage and unmanageable credit risk. His face was removed from the firm's website by noon. His luxury Audi was repossessed from the River North parking garage with a loud, metallic clanking of tow chains that echoed off the concrete walls. Ashley's situation was even grimmer, as federal agents systematically cleared out her father's O'Hare warehouse, seizing servers and filing cabinets. Her former social circle vanished overnight. Her luxury apartment lease was canceled. Her credit cards were declined at every turn. In a desperate bid to shield her own name, she turned on Daniel, releasing angry, chaotic posts online accusing him of ruining her family. Their toxic romance burned to ashes under the weight of real poverty. At 3 o'clock in the morning, the storm hit my doorstep. The heavy rain pounded against my Logan Square bay windows, casting jagged shadows across the hardwood floor. I sat in my armchair, sipping warm chamomile tea, reading a quarterly yield report from Tokyo. Suddenly, the intercom buzzer shrieked, a harsh, relentless vibration that cut through the quiet room. I set my teacup down. I walked to the hallway wall monitor and tapped the screen. The camera showed Daniel standing in the vestibule down below. He was drenched. His expensive coat was soaked through, sticking to his thin frame. Hair hung in limp, wet strands over his forehead. He held a half-empty bottle of cheap bourbon in his trembling hand. He pressed the buzzer again, longer this time. Bzzzzzzzzz. Chloe. His voice came through the small speaker, distorted, wet, and slurred. Chloe, please. Answer me. I know you're up there. I did not press the unlock button. I did not run downstairs. I stood still, watching his pixelated face on the screen. Chloe, please open the door, he sobbed, his fist banging against the glass entry door. The muffled thuds rattled through the speaker. I was an idiot. Ashley lied to me. She used me. Please, Chloe, just let me up for 5 minutes. We can talk. We can fix this. I pressed the talk button on the intercom panel. My voice was steady, crisp, and devoid of anger. Daniel, stop banging on the glass. He froze, looking up at the tiny camera lens. Chloe. Oh God, Chloe. Thank you. Please, open the door. It's freezing out here. I have nowhere to go. My bank accounts are frozen. My firm fired me. Please. I just need my wife. I am not your wife, Daniel, I said softly. We signed the papers months ago. You made your decision. I made a mistake, he yelled, tears mixing with the rain on his cheeks. I didn't know who you were. You never told me about the money. Why did you hide it from me, Chloe? Why did you let me walk away? I never hid who I was, I replied, looking directly into the camera lens. You never looked at me. You only looked at what I could do for your ego. You wanted a trophy, Daniel. You wanted a quiet shadow to make you feel like a king. You did not want a partner. I'm sorry, he wailed, clutching his wet coat around his chest. I'm so sorry. Just give me a loan. Just help me settle the Vance Capital debt. I'll pay you back. I'll do whatever you want. A cold, clear pity settled in my chest. He was not looking for reconciliation. He was looking for an escape hatch from the consequences of his own arrogance. You are not looking for me, Daniel, I said calmly. You are looking for a bailout. You spent 4 years calling me a leech while you built a life on borrowed money. Now the bill has arrived. Chloe, please, he begged, his voice breaking into a ragged cough. Your Uber is arriving at the curb right now, I said, watching a white sedan pull up behind him on the rainy street. Get in the car, Daniel. Go to a hotel. And learn how to be a man without my money. I tapped the screen and turned off the intercom speaker. The screen went dark. The hallway returned to absolute silence. Daniel stood outside in the pouring rain for 2 more minutes, looking up at the darkened windows of my building. Finally, he turned, slouched his shoulders, and dragged his feet toward the waiting car. The red taillights vanished into the wet Chicago night. I walked back to my living room. I picked up my warm tea. My hands were completely steady. My heart rate did not spike. There was no rage left in my soul, no desire to gloat, and no lingering regret. I looked at the rain washing over the window pane, reflecting the soft amber glow of my desk lamp. I had spent 4 years shrinking myself to keep a fragile marriage alive. Tonight, I stood tall in my own space, completely untouched by the chaos outside. I closed my laptop, walked into my quiet bedroom, and slept deeply for the first time in years. 6 months later, Seattle, Washington, The morning sun broke over the snow-capped peak of Mount Rainier, painting the sky in soft shades of lavender and gold. From my top-floor penthouse balcony in Queen, and the cool Pacific Northwest air smelled of sea salt, cedar, and fresh espresso. I stood by the glass railing, wrapped in a plush cream cardigan, watching a ferry slowly carve a white wake across the sparkling blue water of Puget Sound. My new life had a completely different rhythm. I was now the chief financial officer of a major educational technology corporation headquartered in downtown Seattle. I no longer worked from the shadows. I no longer hid my intellect inside an apron or behind a quiet smile. In the high-ceilinged boardrooms of Silicon Valley and Seattle, my voice was decisive. My yield strategies funded digital literacy programs for tens of thousands of young women across North America. To mark this new chapter, I established the Women in Tech and Finance Endowment, a private foundation dedicated to providing microgrants, legal aid, and financial education to women leaving abusive or financially coercive relationships. I wanted every woman to have what I had built for myself: a solid floor, an independent bank account, and the freedom to walk away. Meanwhile, the ripples of the past had settled into cold, hard reality back in the Midwest. Ashley's story had reached its inevitable end. She avoided prison time through a plea deal, but her family's wealth was completely erased. She worked 60 hours a week as a receptionist at a dental clinic in suburban Illinois, living in a cramped one-bedroom basement apartment. She paid monthly restitution fees to court-appointed creditors. The designer bags were gone. The 6-carat diamond ring was sold at a fraction of its cost to cover legal fees. She was no longer a social climber. She was simply a woman paying for her choices, one paycheck at a time. Daniel's transformation was different. He did not flee. He did not sink into permanent bitterness. Deprived of his credit cards, his luxury cars, and his alpha male facade, he was forced to face the ground beneath his feet. He moved to Tacoma, renting a modest studio apartment near the docks. He sold his designer watches to pay off his immediate debts and took an entry-level job as an insurance sales agent. He learned to ride the commuter bus every morning. He learned to cook his own meals in a tiny kitchenette that smelled of garlic and toasted bread. He learned how much a gallon of milk actually cost. Stripped of his arrogance, he began the painful process of growing up at 33 years old. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon, I sat at my sleek walnut desk on the 40th floor of our downtown Seattle tower. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a sweeping view of the harbor. My mechanical keyboard clacked rhythmically as I finalized our foundation's quarterly report. My screen chimed with a notification from the foundation's escrow account. A new contribution had arrived. It was small, exactly $100. I clicked on the transaction details. The routing number originated from a community bank in Tacoma, Washington. Attached to the wire transfer was a brief, automated note in honor of the Women in Tech and Finance Endowment. From a grateful donor, I stared at the screen. The routing number was Daniel's old personal checking account. It was a single $100 bill, a fraction of a drop in a multi-million-dollar bucket. But I knew what it meant. It was the first honest money he had ever earned with his own hands, given without expectation, without demand, and without an audience. It was an acknowledgement of his past blind arrogance and a quiet, humble attempt to rebuild his soul. I picked up my teacup. The warm Earl Grey tasted of bergamot and lemon. My assistant buzzed my desk line. "Chloe, Sam Vance is on line 2. I pressed the speaker button. "Hi, Sam." "Chloe." Sam's voice came through, crisp and warm. "I just saw the alert on the foundation portal. Daniel's contribution came through. Do you want me to reject the transfer or flag the account?" I looked out the window at the white ferry gliding across Puget Sound under the bright blue sky. A soft, serene smile touched my lips. "No, Sam," I said gently. "Do not reject it. Accept the transaction and let the system issue the standard automated tax receipt to his email." Sam paused for a second. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I replied, my voice steady and peaceful. "The system note should say what it always says. Thank you for supporting the future of independent women. Every debt from the past is officially settled." "Understood, Chloe," Sam said, a warm smile evident in his tone. "Have a wonderful evening." "You too, Sam." I hung up the phone. I leaned back in my ergonomic leather chair, feeling the cool sunlight stream across my desk. There was no malice left in my heart. There was no victory song to sing, no lingering anger to process, and no desire to see anyone suffer. Ashley was paying her debts. Daniel was finding his footing in the real world, and I was standing firmly in the light of my own creation. All three of us had stopped playing the victim. All three of us had stepped out of the shadows of a broken marriage and begun the real work of taking responsibility for our own lives. I stood up, walked to the glass window, and looked down at the vibrant city below. My mind was clear. My soul was quiet. My future was entirely my own. The golden hour bathed Seattle in a warm, amber glow from my top-floor terrace in Queen, and the setting sun melted into the horizon, casting long, crimson reflections across the tranquil waters of Puget Sound. The snow-capped peak of Mount Rainier glowed like a giant pink diamond against the fading sky. The cool evening breeze carried the crisp scent of pine needles, salt water, and blooming jasmine from my garden boxes. I stood by the glass balustrade, holding a warm porcelain mug of green tea. The steam rose gently into the crisp air, sending the space with its light, earthy aroma. My phone hummed softly on the teak table behind me. It was not a panicked alert. It was not a frantic call from an ex-husband or a desperate plea from a former friend. It was simply a quiet notification from the Foundation's administrative portal. I stepped over and picked up the device. The screen displayed a routine transaction log, receipt number 1042 issued, $100, donor ID, anonymous, Tacoma, Washington. Status, processed. A second later, Sam Vance's name flashed on the screen. I swiped to answer. "Good evening, Sam." "Hi, Chloe." Sam's calm voice echoed, clearly through the speaker. "I just got the system confirmation. The automated tax receipt was sent to Daniel's email. He opened it 2 minutes ago. No reply, no follow-up emails. Just silent confirmation." I looked out at the sky, where the orange light was deepening into a rich, velvety violet. "Thank you, Sam," I said softly. "That is exactly how it should be." "You know," Sam paused, his tone thoughtful, "a lot of people in your position would have held on to the anger. You had every legal right to crush him financially, to leave him with nothing, or to reject his gesture entirely." I took a slow, deep sip of tea, feeling the warmth spread through my chest. "Anger is a heavy burden, Sam," I replied, my voice steady and light. "Holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. I spent 4 years shrinking myself to fit inside a broken home. I have no room left in my life for bitterness. You really have moved on, haven't you?" Sam smiled through the phone. "I have," I said. "Every debt from the past is paid. Daniel is learning humility in Tacoma. Ashley is learning accountability in Illinois. And I am living in my truth right here in Seattle. We are all finally where we belong." "That sounds like peace, Chloe," Sam said gently. "I will let you enjoy your evening. See you at the board meeting on Thursday." "Good night, Sam." I set the phone down on the table. I did not check it again. I did not scroll through news feeds or monitor old social circles. I walked back to the edge of the terrace and leaned against the glass railing. The golden light was fading now, giving way to the twinkling white lights of downtown Seattle stretching out below. The distant hum of the city felt soothing, a gentle reminder of a world constantly moving forward, constantly renewing itself. I looked down at my hands. For years ago, those hands held back tears, signed a prenup without argument, and quietly folded a betraying husband's suits. Today, those same hands managed multi-million-dollar global funds, signed grants that changed women's lives, and held the keys to my own absolute independence. I had stopped playing the victim. I had stopped waiting for someone else to validate my worth or notice my intellect. I had taken full responsibility for my own happiness, my own career, and my own peace. I closed my eyes and took a deep, slow breath. The cool ocean air filled my lungs, fresh, clean, and pure. When I opened my eyes, the first stars were appearing in the twilight sky over the Pacific. A soft, genuine smile spread across my face. Not a smile of triumph over an enemy, nor a smile of cold revenge, but a smile born from the deep, untouched sanctuary of my own soul. I was no longer the invisible wife. I was no longer the silent observer. I was Chloe Bennett, free, proud, sovereign, and entirely whole. I turned around and walked into my warm, sunlit living room, closing the terrace door quietly behind me. The silence inside was complete, and it was entirely mine. All shadows must fade before the truth, and every pain is simply the start of a beautiful rebirth. Always remember, the right to write a new chapter of your life is forever in your hands. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below so we know we're walking this journey together. Hope to see you on the next page.